Hi, my name's Nicholas Ralph, and I play James Herriot in All Creatures Great and Small.
Hi, I'm Anna Madeley, and I play Mrs. Hall, also in All Creatures Great and Small.
And today we are at the studio I'm recording the final book in the James Herriot series, starting with All Creatures Great and Small and finishing with Every Living Thing.
And I'm reading The Wonderful World of James Herriot. It's a gorgeous collection of the stories and how they relate to the real events that happened in Alf White's life. So you've been reading Every Living Thing, so do you have some new favourite stories?
So one of the characters that crops up in some of the previous books, Mr. Sidlow, he's quite a tight-fisted farmer, and he thinks he is, to his family, he's like an oracle. He knows everything there is to know about any sick animal, and he only ever calls the vet when there is nothing left to do and the animal is dying. Like, it's not even close, like the animal's actually dying. So James gets a call and he goes out there and he's like, yep, there's not much I can do. And the family are like looking at the Mr. Sidlow like, yeah, we knew it, couldn't do anything, because the cow is on its last legs at this point. So James is feeling good about himself. His old car was falling apart. He's got this brand new car and he gets called up to the Sidlows and he's like, okay, let's go and see what dying animal I'm going to have to go up and see this time, and kind of get shunned once again by the family. And on his arrival, Mrs. Sidlow is actually there to meet him and just starts tearing into him about this new car and how the bills are, his bills are astronomically large and he can never help any of the animals. And he's like, well, I can never help any of the animals because they're actually dying when I arrive. But she gives him what for, and it's brilliant in the book just how it's written and the characterization of her as well. He speaks of her having like a pointy chin, very haggard, dark eyes. He said he wouldn't surprise me if she brought a broom and shot across the sky. so for me voicing her, like, it was just so much fun because she got a bit of a cackle in there and things. So they're really fun. And then on the other side of the same chapter, it's kind of the light and dark, if you like, or the variety of veterinary life. He then goes up to Mrs. Pumphrey and he gets welcomed in by Ruth, her housekeeper. And Mrs. Pumphrey's there with Tricki Woo, and James settles into the cosy, the fire there, the cosy sofa, and he gets this big glass of sherry as Mrs. Pumphrey tells him all about Tricki Woo and how Tricki was doing really well on the horses, and they've been going out to this new Chinese restaurant and dining out. And James just thinks, wow, isn't this great, the variety of a country vet? Because one minute I'm getting tortured by this wee woman, and the next minute I'm getting these big glasses of sherry and biscuits and treated like a king, like royalty, by Mrs. Pumphrey. So the light and shade and the variety of country life. So it's a brilliant chapter in the books I really enjoyed voicing.
It's really interesting in this where all the different stories come from, because we realise that he's been writing from a very young age. He's been honing these stories over the years, and he collects, and in this book it acknowledges some of the stories come from his son Jim. There's stories from all the assistants that work there. There were over 30, although in the stories I don't think he writes about as many as that, and they're all honed and all filtered through this real love for the community and that landscape, and with that he manages to find the charm and humour in all of those people. So even the characters who are quite difficult people, he talks about, there were some vets that gave you quite a hard time when you were working for them, but he manages to find the humour and fun in all those situations, and also appreciate all that he learned from people who are very difficult to work for or people who are lovely. I think that's one of the lovely things about him. He's permanently curious about the people around him and the animals, and you get that love and curiosity through all of these stories.
Yeah, and because they're from James's point of view as well, he doesn't take himself too seriously, which I love as well. The kids, so Rosie and Jim, his children, they've appeared a lot more in the last couple of books that I've read, and particularly in this, and they have great fun at James's expense. They're playing practical jokes on him, or something he's expected to go one way doesn't quite go that way, and the kids are just having great fun with it. Another story from this book's actually, he gets affected by brucellosis, which is something within cattle, but vets can get it, and he's wondered to himself, like, oh, it's brilliant, I've never had it, I must be one of these ones that's never going to get it. And then he gets it, but he doesn't quite know he's got it, and his temperature is like up at 106, and he starts he's lying in bed, Helen's put him to bed, and he starts singing all these old Scottish tunes, and he's like, and the high bit just came to me out of nowhere, and it sounded incredible, and the kids are at the door just laughing themselves to bits, you know. So there's great fun there, and then they play practical jokes on him, like they put a whoopee cushion in and things like that. So and he also make purchases, like he goes to buy some fishing netting, or he buys some fishing netting from a fisherman that comes to the door, and he thinks it's going to be great because they've got a little garden now. They've moved from Skeldale in this book, got a little garden, so they're going to make a tennis court for him and Helen and the kids to play some tennis. And he gets all this fishing netting, and it's all wrapped up, and the fisherman's like, "Yeah, well, I'm just getting the last of it away. It's the best of stuff." And Helen's already laughing. She's already like just creasing herself. And he's like, "What?" He gets a bit affronted. He's like, "Helen, why are you acting this way? You know, this is the best quality stuff, I can assure you." And she's just laughing. What did he say? And he tells him about the salesman, and she's just laughing. Anyway, they unravel this netting, and there's big holes in it everywhere, and he's just like, "Oh, not again." And Helen, that's the great thing about the couple as well. Helen just laughs.
Well, that's one of the early stories in this, is that joy of they going on their date, and the car breaks down. He ends up knee deep in muddy water, has to go back and borrow Helen's father's shoes, which have big bows on them. And throughout all of that, Helen sounds like she just has enormous fun. Laughing at him and with him.
They're actually, I think they're dancing pumps, aren't they? They're not even shoes, they're dancing pumps with big bows on them.
Very fine, beautiful shoes from another era. Which is so great. That sounds like a key thing in their relationship, that they had that joy with one another, that he wasn't...
Yeah. Because
it didn't take himself seriously. There's that lovely story of this where he gets put in what sounds like some sort of mad scuba suit by one of the older vets who gives all his assistants a really hard time. And he rolls himself into this suit that's strangling him. It sounds like, you know, the guys that walk the marathon in those heavy old-fashioned metal scuba suits. It sounds a bit like one of those. Yeah. And he's stood at the side of this operation, so the farmers think it must be something very, very serious he's about to do in this incredible suit. And he leans down and picks up a pessary and can't quite unwrap it because his hands are so jammed up with the outfit. And he hands over the pessary and then stands back. That's all he does, all he can do in this enormous suit. So all the farmers are, having been so impressed by his presence, are then left utterly bewildered. And then they start to laugh as they realise this old vet has just played you massively. Oh,
yeah, brilliant. I think that's might be Angus Greer,
I think
grumpy
that's right,
Scot.
Angus Greer, yes.
Yeah, there's some
and at the very
scenes.
end, that's what's beautiful at the end of the story, he's such a grumpy soul. And at the very end, James can't quite work out what's happening to Angus Greer's face. And then he realises he's actually cracking into a laugh. And something he's never seen the man do before. Yeah. So, yeah, beautiful.
Yeah. I think the world of James Herriot, these stories, they've remained popular throughout the years because it's a hark back to a simpler time. You know, the onus was on helping your neighbour. There was a lot of care, compassion, for looking after the animals, but not only looking after the animals, looking after one another. And Siegfried says it, James says it, it's not just about treating the animal, it's about treating the owner as well. And what I also love about this world and these books, they're all based on real people. So there's a truth to the books. And, you know, life at that time, it wasn't easy. It was, you know, being a vet in the Yorkshire Dales in the 1930s was an incredibly hard, rough profession, and he talks about it. But at the end of every call out, whether it's something extremely difficult or something fairly easy, he's then driving to his next thing, and he's driving through the Yorkshire Dales. He's driving through this stunning scenery, and often stops and hops out the car with Sam, his dog, or Dinah, the new dog, the dog in this one, and he goes for a little walk around the Yorkshire Dales. He goes up to the High Dales and looks down over Darrowby, over this little town, this little sleepy village that he lives in there with his family and his friends, and this kind of surrogate family with Siegfried as well. So yes, it's also the stunning, you know, the stunning Yorkshire Dales where they live.
Yeah, and I think that ability to take the time to appreciate the beautiful details in everyday life. He talks about that he very quickly develops a morning routine of walking through the garden and taking that in and appreciating the view of the fells beyond. I think sometimes you think when people live in stunning places like that, they probably forget about it, but clearly James Herriot never did, Alf White never did, that always every day, that beauty that surrounded them in even very small ways was always enriched his day. And yes, it's that contrast of being given a bit of leftover Hessian sack to dry himself down after he's frozen half solid up on a field somewhere trying to get a sheep to give birth or something, and that, you know, no one's giving him a fresh fluffy towel to dry himself off with. But that contrast of the physical hardship of it, with the appreciation of the beauty of it and the care and the love of the animals, the farmers' love of their animals. You know, talk very much about how these small holdings, all the animals would be named. These tough farmers would be crying as an animal died or they had to say goodbye to one. That it's full of emotion. I mean, they talk about the real Alf White not necessarily being able to give voice to his emotions, perhaps in person, but these books and these stories are brimming with it, which is beautiful. And I think that's partly what connects for everybody as well, is the beauty in the everyday and the normal and the intricacies of people's lives. And I think that's something in sort of spirit tone that we've really tried to take through into the TV series as well. It's that beauty of small stories and how rich they actually are.
Because 1 minute you're laughing, and the next minute you can be incredibly touched, and the next minute some high drama. Yeah. You know, so I think there's such a truth to the stories because they're based on real people, because, you know, a real time in history, and the characters are so three-dimensional and the relationships are so strong. You can relate to them, but also it's about love as well. It's love for one another, love for your little pocket of the world, and love for the animals. So it's and it doesn't become twee or over sentimental, and I think that's something that
no, but there's a real sense of care. In this book, it talks about how Alf White did care that the people he was writing about felt well represented. He didn't want to upset anybody, or, you know, Donald Sinclair didn't recognise himself initially, but he tweaked that slightly in terms of, apparently the real Donald was a much wilder character than we even get in the books, and he's pretty wild in the books. So that love that's imbued in his telling of them, I think it's very present.
Thanks for watching, and if you want to listen to the complete memoirs of James Herriot, read by me, Nicholas Ralph, they are available now. And if you want to see how they relate to the real man Alf White,
then please enjoy The Wonderful World of James Herriot, read by me, Anna Madeley, and with extracts from this guy.
Thanks for watching.
Thank you.